Welcome to World of Marketing Podcast, a Foster Web Marketing production. Here's your host, Tom Foster.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the World of Marketing, where I, Tom Foster, talk with legal leaders about marketing mindset and the growth of law firm businesses. This episode is brought to you by my company, Foster Web Marketing. Since the internet was born, Foster Web Marketing has been the premier provider of customized websites, marketing, video, and strategic marketing solutions for elite law firms. Our unparalleled web technology and marketing systems set the gold standard in the industry, catering exclusively to a discerning clientele who demand the best. Partner with Foster Web Marketing to experience uncompromising quality, cutting-edge technology, and exceptional service. Visit fosterwebmarketing.com to discover how we can help you achieve your ambitious goals and solidify your position at the forefront of your field. But today, I've got my new friend, Mark Powers, who is the president and founder of Atticus and has been focusing on coaching attorneys for 35 years and works with top producing attorneys from around the country. Mark is also the co-author of Time Management for Attorneys, developed in conjunction with the ABA, How Good Attorneys Become Great Rainmakers, Hire Slow, Fire Fast, a law firm's guide to building a championship team, and recently released Cash Flow and Profitability for law firms. Mark, welcome to the podcast, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Why don't you first start off by telling everybody what Atticus is?
Well, I'll say more about what our commitment is, our mission is to have, or at least support attorneys in having a great practice and a great life. And they truly go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. And so everybody defines what a great life looks like a little differently, and everybody defines what a great practice looks like a little differently. But we get clarity on those things, and either through one-on-one coaching or peer group coaching, we guide, direct, coach, kick, whatever we need to do to accomplish that goal.
And we have a couple of clients. Brenda Geiger comes to mind, that's in Atticus, and speaks very highly of it. And we have, of course, attended multiple Atticus events over the years, and we consider you guys a great partner.
Thank you.
Thank
you, Tom.
And you guys do a great job helping lawyers build, you're right, build better practices, and that will give them a better life.
Yeah, but it's connected too, right? I want to be clear when we talk to people, it's hard to have a truly great life. And when we say great life, it usually encompasses fun and adventure, health, finance, relationships, all those sort of things. But it's hard to have those things if you don't get clarity of what they look like. And so we do spend time getting clarity, but then there's a lot of work that goes on, and you know this, a lot of that work goes on in the business, trying to get it to accomplish the goals, to give us the time to enjoy that life, to give us the money to enjoy that life, to be able to get the business to provide the results to its clients so that you're making the difference you want to as a business. So it's very hand in hand.
It's so connected. And the issue, as we know, is that lawyers, they go to law school and they become lawyers, and they're like, okay, I'm a lawyer now. And they don't know, they didn't go to business school. They didn't, well, some did, but many didn't. And, they just don't understand how businesses run. And to provide this, to provide all the things that Atticus teaches them, coaches them on, or as you said, grabs them by the collar and gets them to, do it.
Everyone's well-intentioned, and they, Michael Gerber, the author of the Me This, says that really what happens is people have an entrepreneurial seizure, and they may have worked for someone else in another firm, and they say, well, these idiots are doing it. I could go out and do it on my own. And then they find out while I know how to do the substantive work and how to practice law, what I didn't realize was all of this crap that goes with hiring and firing and the
Yeah.
cash flow issues. And
Leadership.
so,
Right. Yeah.
so for a lot of people, it's really learning the fundamentals, the time management, the marketing, the staffing, the cash flow, getting that foundation together, and then being able to grow the business properly and to work on the marketing, right? And to dig into the things that you do with them. But if they don't get those foundations well or put together well, it's hard to do all the other things. And they're always under crisis. So what we've found is most lawyers don't build a firm. What they do, Tom, is they build decent, sometimes really good jobs that produce an income. I don't know if that makes sense, but they're not traditionally building a firm. They're building a good job. It produces a good income often, but they've built something that's totally dependent on them. And it's dependent on them being a hero, which a lot of people like to step into that role, and they solve the problems as a hero. And so everything becomes dependent on
And
that.
it's not scalable.
It's not scalable. And it comes to it really leads in, if you're okay segueing this, Tom, it comes into the conversation that we were talking about here, which is longer term, it comes into succession, transition, selling the firm. And if we're going to ever do that, we've got to build a business that can operate independent of us as the founder or the shareholder, the primary shareholder. And in that world, if we're not working on the firm to build that business, we're really just obviously working in it, building a job. And sometimes it's a good job, sometimes not.
Yeah, some lawyers like that. They don't want to build a business. They want to be the hero, and those are the solo practitioners. But still, you need to have staff to support you. You need to have, you need to have something there. And I see in a lot of cases, unfortunately, lawyers that just kind of sunset their firm.
Oh my God, yes.
Right. And they don't have to do that. They can, and that's kind of the point here, is that, with a few changes, you can still have a solo practice that you're not interested in scaling, but there's a few little tweaks that you need to make to it so that it's a business that you can sell.
Yeah, and it's all fun and games even as a solo until you find out that you're trapped in it. You're working the weekends, you're working evenings, you're not getting vacations, you're not exercising. And so it really ends up trapping us in that model. So we absolutely have to work on it. But one of the things that we're talking about here is a little bit longer term picture on the practice and what we're going to do with it, the legacy for the firm. And so I've done this for a lot of years. And so we've worked people through many stages, all the way from building, starting, growing, expanding, accelerating that growth, and also transitioning it, selling it. So, whether we're transitioning it to people in the firm or we think we're going to sell it to someone else. That's one of the things I'd like to talk about with you, Tom, if you're okay.
Let's do that.
So there's a lot of approaches to that, but I'm going to say something about where we are in our sort of demographics. So a lot of attorneys that you and I encounter today are, if they've been with us for a while, they're in their 60s. And most people, and they're starting to think about, what am I going to do next? What's the next part of the journey? And I'm not a fan of the word retirement, for starters. I don't think it fits the demographics anymore. I think it's an antiquated term. it doesn't reflect a generation of law firm owners who have taken care of their health, their body, their mind, and they still want to contribute to the firm profession, but don't necessarily want to have all the burden of running the firm. So there's still things they love to do, but they've got to figure out what do I do with this thing that I've built now? And that's, sort of like succession. And succession is a little bit like trying to teach a cat to fetch. It sounds good in theory, but good luck getting anyone to cooperate with your succession plans.
Right. There's a lot of challenges.
Yeah. So, at Atticus, we're often told, this will sound odd, but we're often told, we're actually, I'm going to say, quite proud of having a lot of stupid ideas. And what I mean by that is we'll introduce concepts to our members and they start name calling. They say, that'll never work. It's a stupid idea. And it's one of those stupid ideas I want to talk about in succession planning. But usually the cycle for a dumb idea, at least in our company, I don't know how it works for you, Tom, but people first start saying, that's a stupid idea. It'll never work. And then they go into denial a little bit that, well, it might work in that practice, like that family law practice or that estate planning practice or that PI practice, but it won't work in my practice. And then they start to see people doing this dumb idea and they say, well, if that idiot's doing it, then I can do it. So maybe there's some possibility. They start experimenting with it. And then they're shocked is the next phase. You're not going to believe it, but this idea really works. And then they go to amazement. And not only does it work, it's really changed everything I think about my practice, or in your case, Tom, how they think about marketing. It's changed everything. Mm-hmm. And we have a couple other phases. The other is they start to own the idea and they start to say,
it was my idea in the first place. Right.
This is the best idea I ever had. And the final capper to this is they then monetize the idea. They say, now that it's working, I think I'm going to license it back to Atticus. Maybe they can start doing it.
Right, exactly.
So when it comes to succession, this is one of those things that many of our members would say originally, it's a stupid idea, Mark. That's never going to work. So when I think about the approaches to what members and attorneys are going through with the next journey, their legacy of firm, they got a couple of options, right? One is die at the desk. And that's a legitimate one. People will and they have traditionally worked until that's it. They die at the desk and that's it. The game's over. And somebody else has to close the practice down for them. I don't recommend it, but people do it. The other option is they can try selling their practice. Now, we've dealt with this a lot. It's tricky. It's very difficult. It's possible. Some people do it, but when you think about selling a practice, a lot goes into it. You've got to be able to have much more than just goodwill. You got to be able to transfer clients. You got to transfer a book of business. If you can have some repeat business, reoccurring business, it makes a huge difference. Do you know what I'm talking about with that, Tom?
Sure. And I think it's different because of the different types of law firms, right? Like a personal injury firm, much different style and method of business than a transactional estate planning firm, right? So
yeah. The big difference when I hear doctors, it's a big difference because you ever have a car that you want to sell and there's a dent or something on it, or there's something that it's it's old, it's just got a scratch here and there. And you think, who would want this car? Well, that goes into selling practices a lot too. It's doable, but most owners just don't know where the value is and where to look for the value. And they've been suffering with it and they think nobody wants it. So it doesn't get put up there. unless you're talking to litigators. Litigators often think they've got what everybody wants, but it isn't. So it's a hard thing to sell. The other idea that people can do if they're not selling the practice is they can train a successor within the firm. So you can, the selling model, it's really hard to find a buyer for a law firm, but you can almost sell it internally by training an associate to become a non-equity partner, eventually an equity partner. And some firms have done this brilliantly over time, but it's really tough to do. So you get this, right? That
Yeah, sure.
I'm going to sell it to them for a certain value, and they'll either give me that money ideally up front, and then they'll get the equity and they'll take it over, and I'll stay with the firm for a certain amount of time, or they'll pay me off over time, which is not the best way to do it. It's fraught with problems, Tom. I don't know if you've seen firms go through this, but
yes, I got many examples of this that are going through different types of these situations. One that comes to mind is a very successful personal injury firm that has multiple partners, two main partners, one of which is the originator of the firm, and then the other is really the one that has exploded the firm, right?
Yeah.
Really the rainmaker of the firm. And that is, then they've got partners, junior partners, if you will, that are kind of stuck underneath. And the originating partner is way past, doesn't really contribute anything anymore, doesn't do anything, and it's time for them to move on, but they're not letting go. And letting the junior partners, get more of the just rewards for their work, So what do you do in that situation?
Well, there's a lot of things. It's doable, and we have firms that do it very well, but the vast majority fail. And one of the reasons they fail is the attorney, the primary shareholder, doesn't have enough runway. They wait too long. So it takes time to find the associate, get that associate on a pathway, train them, develop them, for them to leave because they decide to go work for somebody else, or it comes up to the point where they're supposed to put the money down and they decide not to. And so what happens for a lot of attorneys is they run out of runway, if you know what I mean. It takes time for that model to work. And usually it breaks down 2 to 3 times along the way. I got the wrong person. We didn't get the right deal. They changed their mind. They couldn't come up with the money down. They had some life crisis, and they run out of time to start again. Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So you don't have enough runway to do it. It's fraught with a lot of problems, and it is doable, but very few firms have the discipline to do it right. And you have to start the runway like 15 years out. It's usually 10 to 15 years out to get that particular vehicle to work. Another vehicle that some people do in their succession is they take their firm and they join another growing firm. So it's easy to think about that there's a firm that needs another estate. They need an estate planner, and they don't have that in their practice. And so you come into their firm, you work out a deal, and sometimes they take your staff, sometimes they don't use your staff, but you help transition the firm into them, and they give you some percentage over time. And again, it's doable. It's just finding the right match. There's a lot of chemistry to do that, and it's difficult. And we've talked about selling your law firm. It's also an option. We've talked about that. But so those are all options. They're all doable, but they don't work out the majority of the time they don't work out.
Well, they don't work out because they haven't had guidance. They haven't had coaching. They haven't had somebody, a guide to a Sherpa to help them along the way. They don't know what's going to, but
well,
that's where you guys, that's where you guys come in, Mark, right? That's where you guys.
Yes and no, Tom. The truth is we have worked people through this and we have guided them through the right process, but it still has breakdowns. So you help them find the right associate, that associate looks good, and then the associate comes up to the point where they're supposed to sign for equity and they change their mind.
I've heard that so many times.
Yeah, so there's so many things that can go wrong, even if you're guided. So
Yes.
and that's where that's where the really stupid idea comes into play. So the name I would say for it, the stupid idea is what I call it is the CEO model. And basically what we're saying is if you have spent the time working on the business and you get it operating right, you've got good people in there, you've got good profit. Certainly this is something you could take to the marketplace and try to sell. You could find a successor. But in my mind, why? Why would we do that? Why would I take something that's producing passive income, a profit for me, not just the substantive income I do for my labor, but I've got it working right. And if I've done that and I've worked on it, it's designed to produce a profit. And ideally, if it's operating right, most firms, we should be able to get to 30 to 35% profitability above and beyond shareholder salary. So if that's happening and you've got the foundation working and the marketing working and the staffing working, right, people in place, cash flows working, production systems are working, why wouldn't I treat this like every other asset I have in my financial portfolio? So I have a 401k, I have real estate, I have annuities, and all of those are designed to drive passive income
Right.
into my long-term financial health. To give, let me do more of whatever I want to do with my life, even if I give the money away via charity. So if I've got it working, why wouldn't I take a professional CEO, somebody that knows how to run, operate the business, and put them in place? And I still maintain the shareholder ownership. I still can play wherever I want in the business. If I want to work on a matter, I can work on a matter. If I want to do something else, I can do something else. If I want to go to Italy for 3 weeks, I go to Italy for 3 weeks. But if I put a professional CEO, now, the difference is I didn't take an attorney, a substantive attorney that's really good at doing legal work. I didn't take them and put them in charge of the business. They weren't designed to do it. They're not great at it. It's not their forte. There are people out there that know how to operate businesses and do the day-to-day, make sure the day-to-day operations keeps moving. Good ones are going to be expensive, a lot more money than you thought you were going to pay. I'm not talking about a firm administrator. I'm talking about someone that knows how to do a business.
Somebody with experience, somebody that's got wisdom and right, that's had some war wounds. Exactly.
Yeah. So you take your business, my business, law practice. It's all the same. And if it is part of my financial assets, it's one of the assets. Why wouldn't I do something like this? And so one of the knocks you would get is I would have somebody in a family law attorney say, Mark, you don't get it. It's a stupid idea. That might work for an estate planner, but it's not going to work for a family law attorney because people come in and they all want me. Well, it does work for family law practice. I've got family law attorneys that are doing just this at highest end, high level celebrities, sports figures, top of the line people coming to this family law firm. And the head of the firm, who's a wonderful, wonderful guy, has trained and built the model so that people work with his team and not him. And he's now transitioning to the CEO model where he maintains the shareholder, the primary shareholder. Now, he's also smart enough to know that my job is to make my substantive attorneys and my employees very healthy and wealthy, make them money, keep them happy, doing what they do and loving their job and making great money. And I'm going to continue to take my portion out of that. So family law, PI, estate planning, it works for all of them. But when most of the people listening to this are going to say, well, that'll never work for my firm, because it's a stupid idea, right?
Right. Yeah. It's not, he's being sarcastic, right? Obviously,
Yeah.
Mark, that is a fantastic idea, but it to most attorneys who, and okay, let's just say it, most attorneys have giant egos and they think that they know how to do it all better than everybody else. This is a hard pill for them to swallow, wouldn't you say?
Yes and no. The ones that I love a good ego, right? I want a good ego, but an ego that says I know everything is a broken ego, right?
Right.
If they think because I'm a great lawyer, I'm a great business person. Now listen, most of the people that can do this ran a really good business. They were able to break those heroic bonds, take off that cape, and they were able to learn how to run the business. Bravo, brilliant. That's what they needed to do. Our job today, every attorney's job, is to be working on this business so that it can operate and produce great results for the clients and great profits for the shareholders, and provide a wonderful culture and a place for people to work. Sure. But that's our jobs, right? That is our job, to work on that and create it. So if you can do that, you don't necessarily, like you or I, want to be the one everybody's dependent on. So that's what I'm saying. At some place you got to transition. You can sell it, you can transition it to internal, or another option, which again comes back to the dumb idea of Atticus, is you put a CEO in place who can run it and keeps giving you the passive income, lets you keep something you love and love to play in for this, whatever you want to do in this next stage of your life. But you don't have to dominate it. You don't have to be the person that everything is always on your shoulders. You free yourself of that, and the investment works. It's making your staff healthy, giving your staff great money, making your associates wealthy. I'm a big fan of making your partners and associates wealthy, and it's taking great care of the clients.
And I would even say you don't need to wait until it's time, until succession time. Like, I know we've got clients like my buddy Kenny Berger down in South Carolina, who's just did a podcast with him, who started his law firm when he was 29. It's a personal injury law firm down there, and everybody was like, you can never do this. You're too young. What do you know? And he has proved them all wrong, years and years later. One of the things that he did early on, though, is he got a CEO to run his firm. He was that smart, and like, I know I want to practice law. I know business, but I want to get this guy that knows this, business better than me.
Yeah, so, and a lot of small firms can't do it. PI can do that because they can afford it. A lot of small firms can't do that. And so they have to be that CEO originally, right?
Sure.
And maybe you can get a fractional CEO at some point, because you're right. If I'm good at practicing law, why don't I do that more and get someone. But listen, if I'm going to grow it and there's no one else, I've got to be able to do that and find people that can practice law. So it really, what it tells everyone at any age in their law firm is they've got to be working on it always working on it. Whether if you're going to sell it, transition it, or get a CEO and keep it as your investment, you still have to be working on it now so that it can be that great, to be valuable at all points.
Yep. And we have the same conversations with people all the time about, we're a fractional CMO. That's what we do for our clients. And we provide those services. And because they know they need to do marketing, right? They know they need to do this. They think they know how to do it. And many of them do. Many of them are quite skilled at marketing, but it's hard to keep up with everything going on. It's hard to manage it all. And you just need help. Otherwise, you're right. As you said, you're constantly the one being inundated with, questions and what am I going to do next? And, everything about marketing and everything in the CEO's case, everything about the business, from staff problems to, growth issues, all of it.
Yeah. So that's the main focus. You and I could go on tangents on any area we wanted to, but I really wanted to help people when they're listening to this, to think that there are a number of ways to do this. I'm a big fan of the CEO model, but go to work on it today to get it to a place where it becomes however you deal with it, however you transition it. You got to work on it today, everything.
Now, is that something that Atticus offers, like some counseling and consulting when it comes to doing that? Because everybody's unique. Is that where they can come to you and get some advice and help there?
We do walk them through so I would say, Tom, our biggest job is to make sure when people come to us, Tom, the first thing you have to do is triage. We got to figure out what they're often the people that come to us are frustrated. They're stressed. They're working too many hours, not taking enough money out of it. There's real pain. And, the metaphor we use is they're in the water splashing around and they need help. They don't want you to say, okay, here's how you build a boat. No, get me out of the effing water now.
Right. Yeah.
And we can talk about the boat, right? So get me out of this, help me out of this, and let's figure out how we can not get into that problem. We can build processes and systems to keep the business working and running. So the core of what we do is around that. And then it's like, okay, you got that working. How do we continue to build a great organization and a great firm, and what's the next thing, and where do we have to be thinking about? How do we get, so our clients, when they get to advanced levels, they have to figure out how they can get 175 days off a year and make sure the business still works and it's driving profits to them. So
how many members are there of Atticus?
In any given day, there's 500 firms that we're working with.
Wow.
Vast majority are small and solo firms.
Right.
Majority.
Is that the focus, or is that just kind of is that your specialty is in small and solo firms, or does that just kind of happen?
No, it's our primary focus. We do work with, we've got the coaches at Atticus, the practice advisors, will work with individual firms, and they work with firms. Some of them are up to over 100 million in revenue. But those are the outliers because they'll work one-on-one. The smaller firms have issues that they can identify with, and they can come together, work in groups with each other and work through, they're guided through the fundamentals. They have each other to weigh on and accountability. A lot of it you really need, like anything in life, to get better. I need some direction. I need some information. and I need accountability in getting there. And if I get the right information from the right people with the right pieces, and I can get it little by little by little in place, I've got something great here. And I'm no longer working weekends. I'm no longer working evenings. I built a team that I love. I love my team. So I built that. So those are the things that transition over time. And as they look back, they say, oh my God, this was from where I was and where I am is so important. But then where do I go next? And for me, it's always growing and learning.
Sure.
If you're not growing for a lot of people, you're not growing, you're dying. And I tend to believe that. If we're not growing emotionally on how to run.
Gotta be challenged. Exactly.
And so that's what's happening where it's trouble. We get bored, and I don't like what happens after boredom.
Right. That's true. That's true. And a lot of lawyers that either sell their firms or retire or whatever find that they don't like it. They go off and do that for 6 months to a year, and they're like, I can't stand this doing nothingness. I want to go back and help.
Part of it is, though, here's part of the reason for that, Tom, and I don't want to go too far because I know we're probably over our limit. But if you go your whole life identifying with the firm, your identity comes tied up in the firm, and along the way, you've given it 50, 60 hours a week. You didn't take vacations. You didn't do things. What you've developed is a used to life. I used to sail. I used to golf. I used to run. I used to exercise. I used to travel. And by the time it comes to you have the freedom to do those things, you don't even have the affinity for it anymore because you've given up on it for so long in your life. And that's totally opposite. We want those things in our life today, all of those things, and the business. And when it's time to have more time, when you want more time in your life, ideally, we just want to be able to have so much of it, we're like goofy with how many good things we can do.
Right. How long has Atticus been around?
35 years.
Wow. That's a lot of experience.
It is. Yeah, it is. And it's, from the very start, Tom, we chose law firms from the very start. That's all we worked with. And I think it's similar with you.
Yes. Yep. We're with law firms. Well, we do some doctors too. We do some healthcare, but primarily, and that's exactly where we got started 25 years ago, building websites for lawyers.
Yep.
And because they're special breed, special business.
And they are.
Right.
They are. And I listen, I can say honestly, the people I've coached, the people I've worked with in the legal industry, I could easily be best friends with them.
Yeah.
The values are so akin that I could easily be best friends with them.
Yes. And I'm sure that you've made many great friendships. How long have you been president?
The whole time.
The whole time? Wow.
The whole time. Well, I started the company. It's not hard if you start the company.
That's fantastic.
But along the way, we've got some brilliant people that came on board. Steve Riley, who you know, and Glenn Finch, and Glenn Gutek, and Patrick Williams. Some great practice advisors, great thinkers that have really. And Sean McNallis. All of these people have grown the business and totally make me, and how people say this, it's not true. For me, it's very true. They make me much smarter than I could ever be.
Well, your people are what make you, right? As long as you get the right people, and obviously you've done that. And I congratulate you, Mark, on, building this business, building this great institution that helps law firms. You have such great credibility across the board. I've never heard a bad word about Atticus. In all my time, I've certainly heard that about other mastermind groups or organizations or whatever, but never about Atticus. It's only good things. And so you've done a wonderful job.
Thank you, Tom.
Yeah, I want to thank you. And I hope that anybody listening to this that is frustrated with how their firm is going, whether a solo or small or big firm, or interested in knowing, like, what do I do with this? You know, when I don't want to play anymore, or how do I make this? How do I have a succession plan? I hope that you will turn to Mark Powers and Atticus for some answers, because they certainly have it.
Thank you, Tom. That's quite kind of you.
Well, thank you. And Mark, thank you so much for your time today. I know you're a busy guy, and I appreciate it very much. And I appreciate the partnership that we've shared for so many years. And I look forward to doing that many more.
We love working with you. So thank you.
Thank you, buddy. Okay, everybody. It's been Mark Powers of Atticus with Tom Foster, The World of Marketing. And thank you so much. And everybody, you all have a wonderful day.